In early 1944, Oradour-sur-Glane lived under occupation like thousands of other places in France. German authorities set the limits and people adjusted because they had to. Work continued. Families planned meals around shortages. Papers and permits mattered. Every routine choice carried a question behind it. What could be said, what could be kept quiet, and what might bring trouble to the door. The war felt close and distant at the same time. Most villagers were not fighters, but everyone heard talk of the resistance in the countryside, hidden groups, stolen supplies, attacks on German transport. The details stayed unclear, passed along in fragments, and with each rumour came another, darker one, reprisals. Not against individuals, but against whole communities. That idea spread faster than facts. German control depended on fear as much as patrols. If weapons disappeared or a soldier was harmed somewhere nearby, punishment could follow in ways no one could predict. So people measured their days carefully, trying to look ordinary, trying to stay unnoticed. Yet the tension never fully lifted, because in occupied France, innocence did not always protect you. It only delayed attention. In June 1944, everything shifted. The Allied landings in Normandy forced Germany to rush experienced units toward the new front. One of them, the SS division Das Reich, received orders to move north as fast as possible. But it did not travel quietly. As it rolled through central France, it treated the countryside as hostile ground. The mission became twofold: reach Normandy and crush anything that slowed the road. Along the route, resistance activity mattered less than suspicion. Das Reich carried out anti-partisan operations meant to intimidate and break support networks. Villages faced raids. Roads were secured with checkpoints. People were seized as hostages, sometimes simply to pressure entire communities into obedience. It was a blunt system. One attack, one sabotage, one rumour, and civilians paid the price. The division advanced, but it also left fear behind it. This was how collective punishment spread. The SS tried to control territory with speed and terror, using arrests and reprisals as tools of movement. Each delay on the road increased the pressure, and each act of resistance raised the stakes for everyone nearby. In central France, the rules of occupation hardened in days. By the time Das Reich neared the Limousin region, the pattern was set. Hostages first, violence next, and whole towns held responsible. On June 10, 1944, SS troops reached Oradour-sur-Glane and acted fast. Their arrival did not look like a patrol passing through. It looked like a takeover. Within minutes, they controlled the roads in and out and pushed into the streets. The normal rules of village life ended on the spot. People who had been going about an ordinary day suddenly faced armed men giving orders. The SS began rounding up everyone they could find. They moved from place to place and pulled people out of homes, shops, and the streets. No one was treated as a bystander. Adults, children, and the elderly were all included, all treated the same way, as a group to be controlled. The message was clear even without explanations. This was not about one person, it was about the whole village. Then came the order that changed everything. The population had to assemble in the village centre. Families were forced to move together, under watch, with no choice to stay back or hide. Any delay risked immediate punishment, so people went where they were told. In the middle of the village, the SS gathered them into one place where they could be counted, watched, and trapped. It imposed a new reality in a single step. The order came quickly, and it changed everything. The soldiers stopped treating the crowd as one group and started sorting people by force. Men were pulled away first, pushed out of the centre, and directed toward barns and garages around the village. It looked like an inspection, something temporary, but it stripped the village of its basic strength. In minutes, families were broken into separate lines, and the men disappeared from view. Then the women and children were driven in the other direction, toward the church. No one moved as a whole anymore. Each group was contained, watched, and cut off from the others. That physical split did more than separate bodies. It separated options. There was no chance to organize, no chance to resist together, no way for parents to keep children close while decisions were made elsewhere. The community stopped functioning as a community. The separation created a new kind of control. Total control, one pocket at a time. Men could not see what happened to their families. Women could not know where their husbands were taken. Any instinct to protect, to intervene, to run met the same problem. There was no unified crowd left to move with. The village became several locked spaces instead of one place, and once that happened, the soldiers set the terms for everything that followed. The men, held in separate barns and garages, waited under guard with no clear explanation. Then the SS acted almost at once. Small teams took positions, as if this had been planned, not improvised. They aimed low and fired together, not to kill instantly, but to drop bodies to the ground. In each building, the same method repeated. It became a system, carried out in parallel, so no one place could warn another. Those who still moved after the first volleys faced a second step. The SS brought in fuel and set the spaces on fire. Smoke and heat finished what the bullets started, and it also destroyed evidence as it happened. Some men tried to crawl out through doors or gaps, but guards watched the exits and fired again. Across the village, several execution sites ran at the same time. This was no punishment of one person, it was organized killings. Within minutes, the separation from earlier turned into its real purpose. The men were trapped in enclosed places where numbers could be controlled, bodies could be contained, and the process could be repeated quickly. The SS moved from one site to the next, checking, shooting, and feeding the fires. The meaning became unavoidable. Oradour was not being searched, and it was not being threatened into obedience. Mass murder had started, and it was already spreading through the village. Inside the church, the women and children waited, pressed together, cut off from the men, taken elsewhere. The soldiers kept the doors controlled. No one received an explanation, only the message that obedience mattered. Then the situation shifted without warning. A device was set off. The blast hit the crowd and spread panic in seconds because it was not a threat anymore. It was an attack. The explosion fed flames and smoke, and the church stopped being a place of shelter. It became a trap. The air turned unbreathable, and movement became harder with every moment. Those nearest the exits found them blocked by soldiers and fire. People fell where they stood, not from one single cause, but from heat, smoke, and the crushing rush to escape. The killing happened all at once, in one enclosed space. This was the massacre's sharpest escalation. The violence extended to the most vulnerable, deliberately and efficiently, with no separation between target and bystander, because everyone inside was treated the same. In a few minutes, mothers, infants, and school children were consumed together. What had begun with control and sorting ended here with annihilation. The church, meant to hold the community, was used to erase it. After the killings, the SS did not simply move on. They worked methodically, as if completing a task list. They set fires in the buildings that still stood. They pushed flames from one place to the next, making sure the village could not recover quickly or hide what had been done. The dead were left where they fell, and then the destruction continued around them. Oradour stopped being a community. It became a ruin in progress. They then turned to the bodies. Some were burned where they lay. Others were handled and gathered in ways that reduced them to remains, not people, and made later identification harder. The goal looked simple: erase traces, break families even in death, and leave nothing intact that could contradict their version of events. Fire did that fast. It also sent a message beyond the village. This was punishment made visible, and it was meant to be remembered. When they finally left, they left silence and ash behind them. A few survivors remained, badly injured, hidden, or overlooked in the chaos. They carried the only direct accounts of what happened, but they had almost nothing left to return to. The roads out led to nearby towns that still functioned, still traded, still ate dinner. Oradour did not. It stood burned open, with its ordinary life wiped away in a single afternoon. After liberation, the first urgent task involved facts. Investigators arrived, officials collected evidence, and the few survivors gave statements again and again. Names were written down, ages confirmed, last movements checked. Each testimony tried to pin a fast, chaotic crime to a clear sequence that a court could understand, but the village itself offered its own proof. The destruction stayed where it happened. It could not be explained away. Families wanted answers, and many also wanted a normal life back. That expectation met a hard decision from the French state. Oradour did not get rebuilt on its original ground. The ruins were kept. The choice turned damage into a deliberate record, protected by law and watched over by public authorities. From that moment, the site stopped being only a local tragedy. It became a national wound, fixed in place. A new village rose nearby, so the living could continue without erasing what had happened. The old streets, the remaining walls, the traces left by fire and bullets stayed untouched, not as a museum display, but as evidence that could not speak and still spoke. Commemorations followed, officials visited, and Oradour entered France's public memory. The message was simple and severe. This place remained, so forgetting never became easy. In the 1950s, the need to name the guilty ran into a hard problem. Many of the men who carried out the massacre were gone, and the chain of command was tangled. Trials finally opened, but they did not deliver the clean ending people expected. Some senior SS figures stayed out of reach, protected by borders, paperwork, or new political priorities. Justice started to look uneven. That feeling never faded. One controversy cut straight through France itself. Several accused men came from Alsace, a region taken and controlled by Germany during the war, where some young Frenchmen were forced into German units. In court, were they willing killers or coerced conscripts? Whatever the legal answer, the moral argument exploded. Survivors wanted responsibility named. Others feared punishing men who had been trapped by occupation. The trial became a national fracture. The verdicts satisfied almost nobody. Sentences landed on a handful of defendants, while major perpetrators remained absent, leaving families with the sense that the true architects escaped. Political decisions then reshaped outcomes, including amnesties that looked, to many, like forgetting by decree. Each step changed what justice meant. It was no longer a single judgment, but a battlefield of memory, identity, and blame that followed Oradour for decades. Decades later, Oradour-sur-Glane still did not return to ordinary life. The French state kept the destroyed village in place, and it stayed that way. The point never rested on rebuilding what had been lost. It rested on holding the damage still as evidence. Visitors arrived not to see a battlefield, but to face what had been done to civilians. It became a lesson that refused to fade. A memorial centre guided people through the events without turning them into rumour or legend. Names and numbers turned into a clear record of collective punishment carried out by a state force. The ruins did not allow easy distance. They showed how quickly control became terror and how an entire community got treated as an enemy. That was the warning. When power targeted a group, innocents stopped protecting anyone. That was why the scars stayed visible on purpose. The preserved streets and remains stood beside a rebuilt life nearby, but they never blended into the present. They marked a boundary between what a village had been and what violence had made of it. In early 1944, Oradour had simply been a place where people lived. Now it served as proof of what state terror looked like when it chose a town and erased it.